Police officers of Reddit, who's the smartest criminal you've ever encountered? I worked with this one guy who had a lengthy record. He had a system for getting released if he got caught after committing a crime. If the police were in pursuit and he knew he was about to be cornered, he would act insane. His girl would play along with it, telling the police that he was off his medication. The police would arrest him but then send him to a mental ward with papers instructing the ward to release to police once he was cleared. Once he was in the mental ward, he would cause a distraction that would make the person attending the desk with the file cabinet to leave said cabinet. He would then crawl to the file cabinet, look for his release to police papers, and then would literally eat the papers. When the psych evaluators decided that he was stable enough to be released, there would be no instructions to send him to the police, and he would be released to the general public. He did this about 10 times until police officers noticed him back on the streets. This stunt forced the state to change their procedure for detaining mentally unstable suspects. My favorite was the guy who stole a post office mailbox off the street, repainted it, and then put it next to the night deposit box at a bank, and hung an out of order sign on the deposit box. All the businesses came along and dropped off their deposits in the mailbox. A guy I went to high school had been stealing from Walmart in a pretty clever way. He would grab video games, MP3 players, beer etc., and throw them away in a trash can in the garden section. The workers never checked the trash contents and he would just wait, sometimes 5 hours, until they emptied the trash in the back dumpster and hop in to get his items. Once he took a cardboard box from a display inside, filled it with video games, a PS3, and extra controllers. He grabbed some tape and pens and drew all over the box and taped it up to make it look used and tossed it. 1 hour later he had a whole new PS3 and stack of games. I'm not a cop but I worked crime scene. This guy had attached GPS to the bottom of people's cars who owned houses he wanted to rob. He did it to ensure they wouldn't be showing up while he was ransacking the place. I heard about one person that pulled a shoplifting scam on a large, popular and well-known US retail store. They walked in with some cheap nylon product to get one of those. I walked in with the stickers they used to put on returning merchandise. The sticker easily peeled off the product undamaged. They walked to the electronics department, grabbed an expensive box off the shelf and went to customer service. They placed the sticker on the big box and asked if they could return the item without a receipt. Unfortunately, no, not without the original receipt. Dang it, and they walk out. Customer service even gave the doorman the thumbs up, having just interacted with the customer. This took place before widespread inventory controls and cameras absolutely everywhere. This was in the late 90s, early 2000s. A guy in my dorm came to school solely to deal drugs. He took out student loans, registered for a bunch of 300-person freshman survey courses where he would never be missed, then literally never went to class. All he did was go to raves and concerts and keggers and sell party drugs. After the first semester, he was suspended. He wrote the usual "I was young and dumb and in over my head" sob story, and got put on probation for a semester, so he had a repeat of the full. At the end of the year, he was kicked out and didn't care. He made something on the order of $150,000 in return for about $8,000 in student loans to cover 1 year of housing and tuition. So far as I know, he was never caught. It may have been a short-sighted maneuver in the long run, but in the short run it seemed fairly genius to effectively use federal loans to start your drug business. I remember an officer telling me about a bee alarm he and his team responded to. Number 1 was there to report the alarm. It must have been a security monitoring company that called. When police showed up, everything seemed normal. Most lights were off, and there was an employee still working. Explained he was there working late and must have set off an alarm. They almost believed him until he said UHH before saying the name of the company he worked for. After that it was downhill, but with a little more research he would have pretty much gotten away with it. Working in a home improvement store when younger, this guy came in, went to the snow blowers, took one and went to the return desk. Said he wanted to return it but had no receipt. They told him you need a receipt, so he says okay, I'll be back, and wheels it off to car through the front door. He did this a few times apparently. couple places even helped him load it back into his car. Former Sears employee here. Theft was a huge problem at my store. This was right before everyone caught on to Sears going under. I had to cover lawn and garden, tools, and sporting goods, all by myself. We're talking literally an entire half of the building with absolutely no way to see everything going on at one given moment. It was so bad that thieves would take locked items to the register while I was in the middle of my tractor pitch, unlock the items, and walk out the door. They didn't even need to unlock them though, because my store had A. just fired all of the asset protection team. We didn't meet our sales goals for the year. And B. there were no sensor alarms to go off when the security devices passed through the door anyway. Guy I went to high school with kept selling this gold necklace under a fake kid to jewelry stores. When he had cash in his hand from the sale, he'd flash a real looking airsoft gun and demand the necklace back. Worked about twice until the third guy knew what the deal was if someone tried selling this one particular necklace. Shop owner went in the back to reference an appraisal book and just called the cops. Funny part was he got like 1 year for the robberies, but using the fake gun added 5 years to the sentence. Not a cop, but I was at a party once and some people were doing drugs. There were also some military guys who really didn't like drugs and called the cops to the party. About 6 cops arrive and say they can smell marijuana and want to search the place and people. Host notices how the police are moving towards the backyard where people had been smoking. Host jumps out the window and comes in from the backyard screaming, "I'm high as a kite," as if Host didn't notice the cops. All the cops grab Host and take Host towards the door. Host is still acting as Host has smoked more than Snoop Dogg, jumping around and shit. People look at Host as if Host is insane. Guests try talking to Host and Host's like, "Yeah, sorry, I'm super drunk and smoked a ton. Can you lock the door when you get everyone else out?" Everyone else doing drugs has noticed what's going on and run out the back. Cops feel like this was victory enough and leaves with Host. Number 1 else is arrested. Host comes back a few hours later. Host has been released. Host didn't do drugs. Edit. Got another one about Host. Host at a party in the woods. Cops arrive somehow and are moving towards where people have been smoking seconds ago. Some girl is afraid and says, "Someone do something." Host runs up to the cop car, pukes all over the front of it and falls over mumbling, "I need insulin, please help." Cops throw Host into the car, drive Host home with sirens, gives Host insulin and leaves Host in bed. Host comes back with a taxi 40 minutes later with more beer. Not sure if Host can be called criminal, but Host is damn good at saving parties. Worked at a jail. After getting off work, I watched an ex-inmate homeless being released. He walked over to a patrol car, looked me in the eye, and the elbowed the window in. He was walked back to the entrance and rebooked in. It was middle of January. He didn't want to get too cold. A French thief who spent 10 years in prison became a comedian when he got out. One of his stories: finds a building, goes in, chooses a floor and transforms the exit door into an extra apartment. Puts the apartment number, fake lock, welcome rug, etc. Puts an iPhone for sale. The person comes to buy it. He opens the door in a shower robe and says, "Give me first second. I am just gonna count the money," and poof. He's gone from the exit stairs. Probably someone who committed a crime I never solved. With that being said, I had a guy use a sledgehammer to smash his way through a wall at a Best Buy and steal a bunch of phones and cameras. He was smart enough to wear gloves and a face mask and not touch anything he didn't have to. Alarms didn't go off until he exited out the back door, which the alarm company gets after 1 minute or 2 and takes them like 0.75 minutes to call into us, giving him a good 5-minute head start, so he was probably a few miles away before we got dispatched to it. He clearly scoped out the area before doing his deed too. Smart dude. One guy would print barcodes, bring them into Home Depot and stick them on merchandise in the 100 range. When scanned, the items came up around the 10 range. Putting random barcodes on things isn't really illegal and super hard to notice. Guy 2 would come in 1 hour later and buy the underpriced stuff. Complete plausible deniability. They would then sell the stuff on eBay. Only reason they got caught is because the guy with the barcode printer software cut the second guy out of the operation, so guy 2 stole a bunch of barcodes, put them on the merchandise and paid for it immediately afterwards. He then proceeded to rat on the first guy and spilled the beans. They had been doing this on a weekly basis for over 4 years. Because we could only pin the one case on him, the burglary was dropped down to a petty theft and he walked away with a few days in county and a small fine. Dude probably took home the pot for tens of thousands over the years. I have a friend who is no longer a criminal but committed crimes for about 15 years and never got arrested or even investigated. Some of his highlights: growing weed in a shed on his neighbor's property. The neighbor was old and never left the house. Buying a building under a fake name, taking out huge loans against it, getting HUD money, and burning it all down. Sold fake raffle tickets to raffle off stuff he never had and never raffled. I can't remember how many times he pulled that scam, but he bought a new car with the money. He moved a bunch of times because people would suspect him of being a con man. His dad was in jail for similar stuff, but he was never even questioned by the police about anything. Now he has a family and a normal job.